started out talking about the firewalk, and your show is called Fire and Soul. And I think that there's a lot of people walking through their own fires right now, whether it's just mental and emotional, or that there's physically things that are going on in their life or stressors in their life that are just making them feel out of the flow of life. And I would love to know, what would be the first things that you would tell someone who's experiencing their firewalk, if you will, right now?
Listeners to Fire and Soul will get this, and that is to learn to be present with it. Increasing our capacity to be wide enough, big enough, strong enough, but not strong in a forceful way, but like I can be with this. The joy, the abundance, the fear, the fires, and just to simply be present with it and not needing to suppress it, to escape it. And then to also recognize that these are initiatory times. And the fires, I truly believe, are not here to punish us. They are here to purify us. And so as we are watching so much unfold in the collective, we are not separate from that. So whatever we are observing and whatever bothers us or riles us up, we might want to just look inward and like, oh, what is happening inside that's very resonant or familiar with that? And the more that we clean up the internal by simply just being with it, the more that the external doesn't even bother us.
Yeah, or even exist.
Or even exist.
All right. Welcome to Fire and Soul. And if you're tuning in, you're probably thinking, this doesn't really sound like Michelle or the voice that I'm used to hearing on the Fire and Soul podcast. And you'd be correct. My name is Jocelyn Rayburn, and I'm one of Michelle's besties. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different because I am actually going to be interviewing her. And I just would ask for a little bit of grace because I've never actually interviewed somebody before, and definitely not on their own podcast. So before we get into the interview, I would just love to share a little bit about how this happened. Michelle is one of my dearest friends, and a couple of weeks ago we were on the phone and we were talking, and we were kind of sharing about our own journeys and how much uncertainty there is in the world right now, and even just how much it kind of was coming up in different places for us. And as we were talking, I had this really strong urge, for whatever reason, I think is a divine nudge, to ask her if I could interview her on this podcast. And so that's kind of how this came to be. Afterwards, I started thinking, oh shit, what did I just do? Because I don't typically like to do this kind of stuff. But the truth is, I felt called to do this because Michelle has been one of my dearest friends. And more than that, actually before that, she started out as one of my very first teachers in this space. And I was a student in her mastermind group, which completely changed every single aspect of my life. And as I was thinking back about our story, I was thinking about just how fitting the name Fire and Soul even is, because we actually met through going to a Tony Robbins training where you walk on fire. And what I started getting in touch with as I was preparing for this interview with her is how much her leadership is about walking through the fire first. And one of the things I love most about Michelle is that she doesn't just talk about transformation. She lives it over and over and over again. And she does it with so much love and just grace and humility and authenticity as she's going through that journey. And she shares it so openly with all of us. And so that's why I think that having this conversation matters. And that's why I'm so excited to be here and doing this, because whether you're in a season of expansion or contraction or just total uncertainty, what Michelle really models to us all is, and what we're going to talk about today is really how to stay anchored in your truth when life keeps inviting you to go deeper. Mm-hmm. So, fair warning, my interview skills might not be up to Michelle's. But I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. And Michelle, welcome to your own podcast.
Oh my God. I had no idea what you would say. I had no idea that you even wanted to open. This is amazing.
I know. I had no idea I wanted to either.
I said, well, okay, I'll open. And she was like, well, I actually have an opening. I'd like to. And I was like, okay. It was really cool to sit here, especially for this show. This is the first and only time that's ever happened. I've brought on conversations that I've been on other people's shows to this platform, but not not in this way. And it's so perfectly fitting that it's you. You
I know.
know?
I was thinking about that in our journey, and actually, I've been a guest on your podcast a few times.
Yeah, and will be again. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just was thinking back over the course of our whole friendship and just how many moments we've shared that have been profound moments in both of our lives, but also, and we'll talk about this more, some of the more like real and raw and difficult moments, even between us, that can speak to how to navigate things when there is turmoil or there is, feelings, and how do we move through those things that are sometimes hard in our life. So I'm really excited. One of my first questions for you is, how does it feel to be sitting here as a guest on your own podcast? And do you think that you would have even agreed to this like 4 or 5 years ago? Because I see you as and your transformation journey. And I think about like how far and how deep you have grown in the last few years, and think like, man, I can't even imagine even asking you that question 4 or 5 years ago.
You might have been intimidated or scared too, right? That's because I didn't realize that a lot of people did feel that way around me. And there are a lot of coaches that I know that their clients are intimidated by them, and they lead through control, unconscious hierarchical stuff, right? And I now know what that is. And it's just, these are stress responses to a nervous system that's trying to stay safe and keep it all together. And but yeah, I probably wouldn't have, or if I would have, I would have missed the real altruistic point, and it would have been more about, oh, cool, yeah, another opportunity to show me shining by someone like you who is so beloved and respected in our collective communities. I'm just being honest, like that would have been me like prior to the end of 2021, but that wasn't that long ago. So what I appreciate about you in this moment is you are one of the few people in my life that has the capacity to see me over and over and over again at all the different iterations. The most humbling, hard moments of my life, you've been there. The most expansive, exhilarating, powerful moments, you've been there. You've been part of like deep prayer inside the structure in Ojai and that retreat that I led, and you came to support, and we prayed together, and our eyes were so full of tears, and we're like, this is a moment that we'll never forget. And we just knew it, just being able to see into one another's souls. And so it feels beautiful to be here.
I got me teary-eyed. We have had some really magical moments, and oh my gosh,
and some drunk and some sober.
Yes. It's been a wild journey.
It's been
oh my God, yes.
We have so many stories. I don't know where you're going to go, but I'm just like, we could just, I don't know why I think our chronicles are so interesting, but I have had the most fun with you, and also the most dynamic journey with you than of any friend, right? Because we can be all about business and execution and strategy and success and making an impact, and then topless on a pontoon boat in Whitefish, Montana, drinking cowboy margaritas at 8 a.m.
Oh my God.
About it.
That was not part of my interview questions, but
I got to honor that 18 months that I picked up, drinking again. It was so fun there for a minute.
It was, we had an amazing time, and it's all part of the journey. And I think actually as you're sharing that, it's like permission to allow it all to be part of the journey and show up as our full selves and just own it all. And
Yep.
so, you know, I was going to go in a different direction, but let's talk about our friendship a little bit more and how that's evolved and deepened and how it's deepened through some of the hard stuff. I would love to
What is
just
a hard stuff moment for you that stands out? I can think of at least one, maybe two, but yeah, I'm not sure where that might be for you. So I'd rather start with your
I
perspective.
think I think I can think of two that were one was professional and one was more on the personal side. And one was your 50th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I it was a time that I think just we hadn't been communicating a lot up until that. Like I feel like and this is one thing that's been really cool about our friendship is that we've gone through phases where we like connect often and then we go through phases where we don't connect for a very long time. And it just feels like it can pick up right where it left off, or like that it's divinely guided when it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a season of complete change. Everything about my life was changing, and I was in a new relationship and totally in love and totally in my own, my own world, I think, in some ways. Um, and it was your 50th, and it was a beautiful celebration of you. It was amazing. And I think one of the things that I just remember learning about through that experience and kind of feeling like I had let you down as a friend, um, and was like really trying to be more intentional and clear about expectations in relationships and knowing knowing, I guess, how what I was doing is impacting somebody else.
Mm.
So for me, it was hard because it was probably that I felt like this is the capacity I have to show up, right now. Um, and it's something that has been not just in our relationship, but it's something that like helped me look at other places in my life and go, I think partly I feel this sense of guilt or shame when I don't feel like I have the capacity to do it all, to be it all, to serve everyone and everything that needs me. And in those moments, I can sometimes throw my hands up and go like, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. And
Mm.
so for me, it was a lot. It was working through a lot of that. I just started looking at this as a theme, and I think if we can look at relationships, the more I go through my life, I look at relationships through this lens of like being able to work on ourselves, that it's not about the other person. It's really about our own journey and how we're showing up and how we're being. And so for me, it was at a time when um, I I kind of went through this phase of like, I'm going to put myself first for once in my life because it had been in the background for so long. And, um, and it felt so kind of like going against the grain for me. But it was, I mean, in some ways, in some relationships, it felt like almost like an act of like defiance or saying like I matter too, or or I can't handle it all. And so yeah, for me that was kind of what was coming up for me, and that was like so it was so much more than just about our relationship and what was going on in it, and it was really the reflection of like I can't be everything to everyone that they want me to be, and the vulnerability of that, the like laying that down and surrendering that and going, no, I can't. I don't have the capacity to do that for everyone in every area of my life. And
Yeah.
the freedom that came from that.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Mm-hmm.
working through that together and you
Mm.
holding the space to be able to forgive and, just all of it.
Mm. Yeah, relationships is the mirror. Do you know what's wild is that, and anyone listening to this show, and especially if you've been listening since then, and most of y'all have, you know that that would have been, well, let me give you the year. It was 2021, and that would have been June. And the lockdown started in 2020. By 2021, there were all kinds of fears of forever mandates and things like that. And there were a whole group of us, mostly listening to this show, that already decided that under no circumstances would we ever go in the way that the masses were going. And so I was already in this massive deconstruction, and I was in what felt like a psychotic break, right? Because my entire life, I was like one of three people in my neighborhood that wasn't believing everything on the TV. And so as I reflect on that time and drinking a lot of alcohol, it was a blur. And so I can't even probably relate to anything that might have even been said, because I had what I feel is a rebirth, and there's been 100 rebirths since. You sent me a meme yesterday about what we think an awakening is going to be like, and then what it's actually like. And I'm like, yeah, and for forever. And for forever, is that it? Because it's not a finite destination, and the deeper we go, the freer we get, right? But at that point, I was disassociated. I was in this chronic state of disassociation. Everything was foggy and unclear, and nothing made sense because my entire reality was inverted, and I didn't know. I didn't know how to navigate that, and it was really hard for a few years. And it was August 9th of 2021 where I let go of it. That's just 2 months later, let go of the alcohol, the news, the mainstream media, just all of that. And then left Santa Monica after like decades to go stay at my mom's for what we thought would be about 10 days. And it ended up being over 10 months. And then I never went back to Santa Monica because I was called a domestic terrorist by my neighbors that loved me for years and years and years. So that was all going on at that time. And I only have a teeny itty bit of PTSD now, and it usually will only come up if I'm stressed and then happen to think about that. But for the most part, I feel really, really clear and whole about that. So my birthday was in that timeline.
Yeah.
And in fact, there were a lot of people there that we weren't seeing reality in the same way, or some of us were. And so that brings me to one of my moments with you was when I was begging you to go one direction and you thought maybe you would do that regarding that whole era. And then one day you called me and you're like, here's what my life looks like and here's why I'm making these choices. And I remember just in that moment being terrified for you. And then I didn't know how to navigate that relationship with you and several others of how do we move forward. And honestly, it did shift a lot of relationships in my life. And it's just a magical miracle that you and I got closer.
Yeah.
In time, but like just really honoring one another's lives and choices. And also, turns out you were awake to so much, but made choices that felt really good. And it turns out now we look back and we're like, oh yeah, so a lot of that really deep, deep fear stuff was probably not even true, and it's just so beautiful when we have the benefit of hindsight that I sometimes call kindsight.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like, oh, and it was just, I remember even talking to my mom when all that was going down and I'm like, I can't quit Jocelyn, like ever. And anyway, so that was one of the more tender ones for me. But what's so crazy is that if we come full circle to your 40th birthday that just happened, like Eric, your then hot boyfriend that you're now married to. I remember when the two of you walked up and I was like, they look like supermodels, like both so tall and just have that aura of love. And it was just amazing. And he invited me to your 40th.
Mm-hmm.
as a surprise to you. And I was just like, oh man, I'm just not going to be able to get there. And so, it's like, it's so cool to just see how those things don't make our relationship. We love each other and we have been here for one another and we connect in the ways we are meant to connect. And it might not make sense to the societal rules and conditioning of like, you do this and you do that. It's like, no, we show up in the ways where we both feel so seen and loved and celebrated, and so it's
Yeah.
been that journey.
Yeah. And I think it's been, I mean, I can think of now, on the other side of all of the, not all of the difficult moments, because there's only been a few, but like of the difficult moments, then the best and most growth, um, profound moments of my life, like you invited me on your retreat, and I was supposed to be coming to serve, to help you serve, and ended up sicker than I have ever been in my life. And Samson sat with me the whole time, which was so sweet. And now I have a dog, maybe partially thanks to that whole experience. But I I think of how much of my growth and my spiritual journey has been a result of your leadership and your mentorship and wisdom. I mean, even just this year, going through one of the hardest years of my life,
Mhm.
you were the person that said, I just called you. Hey, I don't know what you'd suggest for this, but I just need some wisdom. And you started talking to me about somatics, and that opened me up to a whole different world. Um, and so even in the good moments, like it hasn't just been fun experiences and stuff, but it's been some profound growth
Yeah.
and really, really deep connection. Like I always just think divine connection. There's something about like, yeah, what you said. And you being at my 40th doesn't matter to me, but us having the connection we have really does.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think we put these conditions on friendship of like, well, if you're a friend, this is how you show up, or if you are, and I just feel like we have none of that anymore. It's like gone. I mean, there's
Totally.
no expectations. It's all just beautiful and
Feels free.
yeah,
Feels
very
really
free.
free. Thank you for that. In case y'all wondering, like not everyone gets so sick like that at Soul Essence retreats, but it was time for you to have a deep healing.
Yeah.
And that can happen when you're working with some plant medicine. And so we had facilitators, and it was profound for you. And it was also magical in so many other moments. You were also deepening into the gene keys there, which I'll never forget.
Mhm.
And you got a lot of rest that you needed. You needed, deeply, like internal rest, even sacred rest.
Well, even just being in the position of it felt so vulnerable to be at a retreat that I was meant to be helping at, to
Mhm.
then be receiving was so hard for me.
It was incredible. I remember we walked in as a procession. There was like a dozen of us, and we were holding roses, and we were singing and humming, and we were praying over you. You were so sick you couldn't get out of the bed, and then someone was playing a wooden flute, and I mean it was, and you just were like probably so like it was delusional for you. You're like, what is happening? But we knew we were supposed to come over you and pray over you and offer healing over you and lay the roses on you. And then we left, and Samson stayed with you. It was
Mhm.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Some just incredible moments. And what's cool is that we're going to get to share more of these as our, creative endeavors and our friendship continues to unfold. So right now I got a million things that feel so profound and sacred. And I'm like, hold up, you don't have to get them all out right now.
Oh, what's
Yeah.
what's the one that's coming to mind most right now for you?
It's when you invited me to Jack's luxury retreat. It's not because it was his retreat, even though that was incredible. And people flew in from all around the world for like a 2.5 day thing that was a literal hour-and-a-half drive from my home in Calabasas to his private residence in Santa Barbara. But it was the first time I had put myself in the matrix again. And I'm going to probably cry as I say this because it was so weird to be out with people again for almost 2 years. So that was October of 23. And it was August of 21 that I kind of went into this spiritual rehab, this cocoon, this deep healing, trying to figure out what was happening with the world. Was I safe? It was all so wild. And I went into a deep shock that the masses weren't seeing it. And I couldn't understand that. I think now way more people are, but still not the masses. And that's just life. And now I'm totally at ease with it by like 99%. But it took a minute. And I remember driving and getting further away from home base and seeing Calabasas in the rearview mirror as I was driving up. And I was like, this is too far away. This is too far away. And I was like almost having like a panic attack to like leave my home. Because by then I had gotten my own place and I wasn't living with my mom anymore, which by the way was a beautiful chapter in our lives. Like, when do you ever get to live with your mom, just the two of you as an adult, and it actually be mostly magical? It was so important for both of us to get to have that forever memory that I will truly treasure for my life. But I remember looking at you and your eyes, always, your eyes just so bright, always. There's only a few people I've ever met in my life, less than one hand, where I can see the soul. You don't hide from me. You don't hide from actually anyone who has just the capacity to see. You have no filters and you just beam your light, your God light. And so I remember looking into your eyes because we were doing some dyad. Jack always likes to start you off where you do some dyad and share what you're scared of or what you're excited about and grateful for and all the things. And I was like, I'm really scared to be away from home. Like, I'm hearing people talk about news and I know it's not real. And you never once denied me, even though that wasn't your world really. You never denied me. You just listened and you received me and you made me feel safe, And in a world where 99% of the people in that room, there's one, and she's coming to my upcoming retreat for the third time. And Cindy, I love you if you ever happen to listen to this. She could see
Cindy
it.
Too.
Oh, Cindy. Her birthday was yesterday.
Oh, I need to text her.
Anyway, so you made me feel like I was at home, I was in the right place, and also I hadn't created it, and I was trying to run something that just wasn't gaining traction and in the ways in which I would be able to sustain my lifestyle. And I had just had a big bomb. And I mean, this was like my heart and my soul of pouring into Soul Circle, and anyone listening will know about it. And it was always meant to go private, but I was like, what do I do now? And it was at that same retreat. Not only did I learn how to be in the world again, but Jack literally like took me by the shoulders like a father would and shook me and said, do you know who you are?
I remember that.
Like, not just because I had all these credentials and success and all this, but like, do you know? And it was like so sincere. And then between him and Patty Aubrey and you, I was like, okay, I'll create it. And then I had, just a really powerful next year and continued year. And here we are. So yeah, that moment was the fact that you invited me to that I got to go to that. It was a game changer for me. And I will always look back on October of 23 as like got me out of the inertia that I didn't know how to get out of. And you were there.
What's coming up for me is that our journey has been one of so much reciprocity. Like, because I'm thinking about this going, I would have never met Jack if it wasn't for writing my book, which you were the person that really held me accountable to do that. Like when I joined your mastermind group, I just remember, and then I hired you as a coach, and I remember our conversation, and I was so proud of my goal of like, I'm going to write my book in 3 months. And I remember you saying to me, that doesn't feel big enough. And I was like thinking, what? That feels monumental to me.
No.
And, but you saw something. I mean, I don't like, again, that was probably just divine wisdom coming through you. Like, I wouldn't have worked so hard if I didn't. It was like giving myself the best leverage to get it done. And you said, I think you should have a goal to get it published in 90 days. And I think 91 days later, we were standing together in Santa Monica and I had my book published and done.
And handed me a printed copy, which I have on my bookshelf 5 feet from where I'm sitting. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was outrageous. And honestly, I thought I was Tony Robbins. So that's how I used to guide because my first mastermind was inspired by UPW, San Jose, 2018. It was March. And I launched my very first business paid mastermind for $149 for 3 months, meeting weekly. And everyone got a 30-minute private call. And it was in that call where you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to finish it. And I'm like, I don't know if that feels big enough. I think you could publish it, which who only a Tony Robbins wannabe would say that. And it's so funny because on the one hand, we look back on that and I would never do that today because I don't feel like that honors someone's, I don't even know your capacity. I don't know anything about you, right? Talking about somatic wisdom. But we look back on that and we're like, yeah, but we did it.
Yeah.
You did it. And look at what it opened and shifted. And, so it's like, I can't say there was anything wrong with it. It was just, I might not do it in that exact way today, but there's nothing I love more than watching people launch a really beautiful dream, right? And bring it out into the world to be of service to others. I mean, that's what your book was. People still talk about your book.
Yeah.
Thriving through transitions, which you laugh and you're like, by the way, don't ever write a book.
Oh my gosh.
You are so funny about that. Like create programs and write books based on who you want to attract into your life as clients and community members.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember. I think it was oh my gosh, who was it? Somebody that was on Ayanla Van Zant. She was on a call and she said, just be prepared for whatever book you birth to birth you. And and now I joke, my next book is going to be called Life on Easy Street. That is what I want to create in my life from here.
Well, because of you, I created Magnetic Creator. And
Yeah.
I have been truly an embodiment of that on an energy level ever since. It's like, I don't know how it happens, but it just continues to happen with a lot of ease. That was also a very hard year. It was a very humbling year and a very revealing year for me in 24, launching that mastermind and with what needed to come through at that time that I'm also grateful for. But ultimately looking back, again, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm like, to call ourselves magnetic creators is a pretty smart title, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
right? You move into that, and yeah, I love that. Yeah, so that was a moment. All of that, it just a lot of sacred reciprocity.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it's just been like that over and over again in the journey. And I think it's so different than what, especially when you're kind of like coming out of the Tony Robbins-esque communities or whatever, there's a lot of transactional relationships that you feel like you feel it. You can feel that, um, I scratch my back, you scratch, or whatever, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. But it's never been like that. It's been free flowing, but as you look back over the journey, it's like, but there's been this beautiful exchange all along the way. And it feels so sacred. So
Yeah, I'm so glad that you just said that because I have actually felt for years that I was getting way more out of it. And it's really beautiful to hear you say, like, it's always been, reciprocal and that you have felt like you've gotten so much out of this connection. And because I just feel so blessed, like, I don't know where my business would have been had you not been like, we got to get Jack on your podcast. And of course, Patty Aubrey was instrumental in helping to make that happen. But it was you, like, I'm going to do that. And he'd been my, one of my favorite mentors for decades and decades. And then that conversation changed my life because then all of a sudden I'm, sipping ayahuasca with him and a bunch of his community members and wife in Costa Rica, along with my mom. Who does that? Like, I'd never even done like a mushroom. And I'm sitting there for 4 nights of ayahuasca. And then that led to collaborations with him, and how many thousands of people has he trained and how few people has he actually collaborated with. I mean, it was just such a dream, but you were always that person who believed in what I had because you also helped create it. So you knew intimately what was at the heart of it. And yeah.
But I want to talk about your shift in leadership, because I do think there's been such a profound shift in how you lead others and how you live life and how you I feel and see the change from the very powerful get it done, success model that is modeled to us in the world, to what it is today, which is so much softer and um so much more just an invitation and a um I, I think more you're just leading by example. There's not, well, you should do this or you should do that. I don't feel or see that really coming through at all, but yet I feel like your leadership is the strongest that it's ever been at the same time. So what shifted for you in that?
Oh, it's really cool to have this conversation because I didn't even know we've never talked about like this, even that was something that you had noticed or that was obvious or palpable in the ways that you just expressed. It's strange, I'll tell you. There was a long time where I was like, how do I look exactly the same? Because I don't feel the same. I'm like, I got the same hair, I dress the same. I don't really wear any heels anymore, and a lot less makeup. But I was like, should I be tattooed with bald head and mala beads? And I'm like, that's because it feels that extreme, right? I'm like, no, like, I don't have to dress a spiritual way, which I tried that on for about a year. And it turns out that was just more of like performative because I didn't know any other way. I was like, well, this matches more of what's the inside. And I was like, just keep doing what you do. I mean, the Gene Keys kind of leveled me,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. But what leveled me before that was this reckoning that started with like, this is the real world. This is what's happening in many ways. And a lot of that, of course, was exaggerated, but a lot of it not. Those worst case scenarios are, you know, they're there. I don't put my attention there anymore. But in the beginning, that reckoning was more the external. And then what I notice is that anything that I'm experiencing as dystopian on the external was an invitation for me to see where was the dystopia within.
Mm.
And so then I noticed that a lot of the familiar patterns of feeling, I didn't even know, but like a victim or disempowered or oppressed or anxious by, they were starting to really show up. And I was not able to escape my inner work anymore. There was no way it became a demand. And that is a real spiritual awakening. It's not attractive. It is not fun. It is not comfortable, to say the least, as you're confronted with every aspect of your shadow that is a master teacher. And what I wanted to do in the beginning was just kind of go neck up and just be like, oh, it's all love and light. And I was being demanded to turn inward and to wake down to myself, to every shadow, every wound, every unhealed part of my life. And where it really showed up was with my dad in the beginning. And so it was also October of 23 when I was at my altar. And I've shared this story on the podcast, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I was basically begging for help. Like, I am so tired of being in this dynamic of just feeling sad and disappointed and all these things, right? And And it was shortly thereafter where God placed a breathe with cannabis workshop on my path, which made no sense because I don't smoke cannabis um, or do cannabis at all. I'm not against it. It's just not my thing. And, but it was going to be a whole thing on relationships and the give and take of relationships. And it was by Aaron Apke, and I really love him and still do. And I was like, okay, I'll go to that. So I got a little pre-roll, listened to his whole thing on relationships with food, with time, with family members, loved ones, all the things. And then Ryan Sprague came out and taught us how to use cannabis consciously. And then the breathwork guy comes out and he happens to mention that he's a Master Gene Keys teacher. And I was like, huh? And so this is the beautiful thing about Source or God or the divine, however someone refers to it, in my opinion, is we ask for a prayer, but then it's up to us to notice when it shows up on our path, because it always does. Mm-hmm. It was also right around the same time that Jesus started to show up in my life. And at that very Breathe with Cannabis workshop in my home with about, 800 people from around the world, all on Zoom, and I'd set up my space. It was in that breathwork session that Jesus showed up in my living room. And I had become a 5-year-old. I was like shaking and convulsing. It was a wild, like full on, like psychedelic experience, as breathwork can do. It was deep. And so anyway, he happens to mention that he was a Gene Keys teacher. And so I go through the breathwork session, and it was the next day when I went back to the Gene Keys, because my business mentor, Gary Ng, had said 2 years earlier, I think you'll really love the Gene Keys, but I wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. I didn't have access yet. When I say access, I couldn't slow down enough to be present. So I think that is ultimately what has shifted me, is getting much more quieter inside, slowing down. I used to say for years, for the first 2 years of this, that turtle was my energy medicine. And I would say to everyone, take all the time you need. There's no rush, no urgency. And I was so accustomed to urgency that I thought that was how you got stuff done. And I was so used to performance-driven behavior and activity. I was like, will I ever create again? Will I ever have drive again? Will I ever be ambitious? And it turns out, no, just shows up now through creative surges. And I now know to honor them. So it's like if I go through a few weeks or a few months and there's like nothing there, I now know to trust, because when it comes, I'll know how to ride that wave. And it just happened with something that you and I are getting to work on. Like I was like up till 2 a.m. and then up at 5 a.m. And I was like, what? This is awesome, just to feel in such creative flow. But I've slowed down enough to trust myself and surrender to that trust fall of life. And I don't say this, I'm not there all the time. Believe me, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is it all going to work out? But I am there more of the time than not. And I think it's the slowing down inside and that scarcity mindset that drives that fast, urgent, over the top, pushing, proving behavior. It's coming from a ramped up nervous system that doesn't know any better and that thinks that it's got to get it all now. And now I know that that's just not true. And when I lead from my own wholeness and I can enjoy the subtle aliveness and not the high highs and the low lows, and like the subtle aliveness, that for me, it's just more of just who I am. So I think it's showing up in my leadership, and it's also showing up in my relationships. And
that's so interesting as we vibrate in a certain way, it shows up all around us. And I mean, as you were going through all of that, I was really learning through just watching you and seeing how you were showing up in the world differently. I mean, it had nothing to do with conversations that we had or anything you told me to do. It was just like, wow, there is something palpably different with Michelle now. Like, I don't know what it is exactly, but I want to lean in. And I think, a lot of even just going to your retreat and doing plant medicine for the first time, I mean, that shifted so much for me. That was such an intense and powerful experience. And there was so much that was let go of during that time. And then I actually ended up doing some like low dose ketamine therapy. And I just remember this audio track from Alan Watts, who's become one of my greatest teachers, um, talking about how, we look at life as a race, but it's really a dance. It's really a musical number. And if you go through life thinking that you got to get to somewhere, you miss the whole point along the way.
Miss it
And,
all.
a musical number, you don't only focus on the ending of the song, you enjoy it through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And living in that state of joy. I think it's very hard for people who come from a world, which we really all do, especially in the West, like that is so performance driven and so focused on results and delivery and that kind of success culture. It feels very awkward at first to like drop all of that and go, I'm going to do what I feel led to do, called to do today.
It's like just getting really clear about the cleanliness and the purity of a connection and being so grateful for that and trusting that life takes care of itself and organizes itself around truth and altruistic intentions. And I've learned this now because, yeah, it's a game changer. And it's wild because I moved into Austin, which is like the mecca for like conscious leadership and spiritual coaches and all of that. And I've met so many people and I've had so many women say to me, I got to tell you, I've known you now for 6 months and I want to say something that I don't get to say to other women that like do what you do. You've never solicited me. It's like usually I'm like, you're going to like try to get me. And I say that because it's sad, but it's out there. Or there's all this control around having a hierarchy around your community and no one else can have access to them. And it's just like all that control I have contributed to, I used to, cultivate. It was known. Again, it could have been intimidating, but now it's like, God, just total freedom.
Yeah.
Let's just let everything just unfold the way it's meant to. And it's amazing what happens from that perspective and trust
Yeah.
and generosity of spirit, not because you're trying to be, but because you just know that life is always working out for the highest and best.
So true. And as I'm listening to you, I mean, I'm just reminded of how much the entrepreneur journey is the spiritual journey because, I haven't had that for the last several years because I was working for Jack. And so everything felt very like clean and pure of heart because I had a security blanket and I had a job that was not tied to, whether or not I got somebody into one of his programs or not. It was like kind of a team effort. And I didn't feel the weight of that on my own shoulders so much. But I know exactly what you're talking about. And as he was transitioning out of working full time and, he's still doing things, but he was transitioning away from that. And it started coming up for me of like, oh no, where is my next thing going to come from? What am I going to do? How am I going to survive? And it brings you down into a frequency that's like, it's about survival. And it's for anyone that's living in that place, it feels like if I don't control the situation, I don't know how I'm going to make it. And it's very real, and I was in that state earlier this year, but again, our story weaves through even this story of like, then I meet Jeffrey Martin, who is this amazing teacher of, teaching people really how to live in long-term enlightenment and, live in a state of enlightenment, or what he calls fundamental well-being. And it's like this most perfect thing that I could step into. It's been a, really difficult thing to like learn it all and understand it all and all of that because he's so brilliant and has done so much research in this area. But even that, it's like I'm starting to talk to him. I just come off meeting him. I fly into Austin for South by Southwest. We get to connect, and I'm like, so I'm going to work for this guy. And you're like, oh my gosh, the Finders. I know exactly all about it. And
Best-selling book. I mean, I have it in Audible. I have it in hard copy, like The Finders. That was the first book that was recommended to me when I was going through the initial stages of my awakening, so that I could learn to make sense of where I was along that journey.
and it's so crazy now because I've obviously really immersed myself in all of it. I can look at your journey. Like I literally was telling him in Puerto Rico when I went to meet with him, and he was like, describing all this to me. I'm like, oh, my friend Michelle just went through this. I know for sure she's a finder. But then for you to also know it was like, just again, something lighting up my path going, yes, you're on the right path, like listen, trust your intuition on this. And it's so funny you brought up the altruistic piece, because I literally was sending him a text last night saying, like, I have never felt so held and so supported in even though it feels very difficult and I still don't know what the heck I'm doing sometimes, there is this like altruistic presence in my life of just somebody really deeply, genuinely caring and wanting to hold space for my growth. And I mean, I can't tell you the number of times over the last 6 months I've been like, why did you hire me for this? Because I don't feel qualified, and it's true. There's something to that like altruistic piece. And I do think when that leads in life, it will be blessed. Like, I mean, I believe that when we are focused on service and focused on giving and really helping bring more good to the world, we will be blessed. And it may feel like you're in a season of life that feels like it's never going to end, of difficulty and pain. But I mean, the more and I love the Gene Keys because it just is all about this. It's like the more that we just lean into it all and the more that we embrace it all, like the shadows and the gifts and all of it, I feel like the easier it is to just kind of surrender to it.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say, you've probably heard the quote, like, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Yeah. Not to say that Dr. Jeffrey Martin is God, but like in some aspects, we are all, an emanation of God. And but it doesn't matter, because that's the vehicle in which you are being called right now. And there's other vehicles in which you are being called, and that's where we get to align and collaborate and in some of those endeavors, and mostly just it's through frequency, right? Of and resonance. And the hard moments that you talk about, like this year might have been the hardest year of my life. But what's so and we're in the year of a 9, so it's a big shedding year, right? When I say the collective's in a 9, right? 2025 is a 9, and that's endings, closures, and completions. And I went through a 9 last year, which was all my endings, closures, and completions. I mean, California, my business, so much. But I think the reason why this year has been so intensely hard is because I have more capacity for it. And I think at the core now of everything, and I don't know what you observe, and quite frankly, I don't know if we'll have time, but I'm so curious. I'd love to know at least just one example of what you were witnessing from afar. And you're like, oh, that seems like a shift, that right there. Because I would have no idea. I'm just kind of going along, right? And along the way, you would share things like, I love how open and honest. And I was like, oh, really? Am I? Like, it's not even like, but it must be different for you to observe. But I think, though, just to kind of circle back to what I was just offering is, I think at the core of where I am right now is, am I leading, guiding, loving, living from my true capacity? Where am I selling out? Where am I performing? Where am I pushing and trying to prove? Where am I still lusting after approval and why? And not shaming that or making it wrong. Just, oh, look at that. That's there right now. Right. And, or worried about money and all that, like all the things that anyone can get caught up in. But it's like, if I don't know my own capacity, then how will I ever be able to attune to someone else's? So whether
Yes.
that's as a client, as a community member on retreat, I used to force so much connection right away, like 5 minute eye gazing, like you were at one of those retreats where we did that. And it's like, that is so not cool for a lot of people. They don't have the capacity for that. So they'll just laugh or they'll, check out and it's like, there's so many other ways that now I know better to like build up to that, to cultivate capacity. And that's the part that I'm so excited about because actually my business is going to look a lot like the same. I've come full circle. I'm like, oh yeah, I am a creator and I love to help others create. But how do we now create from wholeness? And
Yeah.
from true capacity, and what would that feel like, and what would the pacing of that be, and gosh, I mean, that's a conversation that I'm excited about. So that's, I
Well,
think, at the
that's one of the things. I mean, you asked me, I would love to know an example. I think your openness and vulnerability about even how you've led and you've had things that you go, oh my gosh, I look back on that and cringe because I would never do that now. Most people don't let people see that part of themselves. Most people don't let anyone into that story, but we all have it. Like, I would never do the things I did at 20 now that I'm 40 and see the difference, but you've been really open and vulnerable in sharing that part of your story and sharing how even your leadership looks different today than it did a year ago, and that
6
was
months
after
ago.
your big awakening.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's just that you're someone who exemplifies and embodies evolution,
Thank
which
you.
we're all doing.
We are all doing. I just happen to be doing a lot of mine out loud.
Yeah.
The other day I was in a conversation with one of my teachers in attachment science, trauma and informed care and somatics, Natasha. She's going to be on the show actually soon. And she said to me, I want to share with you what it's like to receive your honesty, like in class, like the way that you share. She's like, it's so honest. And it allows her to also show up with more honesty. And I was like, thank you for naming that because I know I'm pretty damn honest, but people are only honest to the point where they even know themselves,
Right.
right? And I'm like, and I know myself unfortunately and fortunately really well now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll know way more in a year than I do today. And I love that. But like most people, when we talked about this, Natasha and I, they don't want that level of honesty. And that shocks me. And this goes back to even 2020, 2021. Like, why don't we all want to be there? Take the lid off the pot, so to speak. Let's go in. This is where the magic is. But most people don't want that. And I will say that what I love about our friendship, our connection is that's where you and I thrive.
That's how we started the conversation, talking about being topless in Whitefish, Montana. Yeah, I mean, that's about as honest as I'm going to get.
But then, you book in that to then you asking me to please lead our group into a guided meditation as we were like standing amongst pine trees on Lake Jenny, gazing at the Grand Tetons in Jackson, Wyoming, right? Like, so it's like there's this
I know.
range that is just like so spectacular.
Yeah, and it's all part of life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other beautiful thing is that and I don't think you used to do this as much, but you give yourself and others so much grace
Mm.
with all of it. Like there's no judgment of any of it anymore.
Mm.
That's a beautiful place to be. That's a beautiful state to live in. And And I think that's another one of the gifts that you give is like, there's no judgment here anymore. Everyone's doing exactly what they should be doing, you know?
That's also fairly new. Like the last
Yeah.
6, 7 months, really deeply, like we are all truly on our own journey. And I loved to keep track and tell you where, like, if you're going to judge me, do you want to look at yours? You know? And it's just like, oh my God, I don't care. My purpose, which is your life's work in the Gene Keys, it's Gene Key 6, and it's the shadow of conflict moving into the gift of diplomacy, into the city, the divine essence of peace, which is incredible since you are working with Dr. Jeffrey Martins and the foundation is all toward cultivating peace.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm learning about diplomacy as the gift that the shadow brings, is it's not just about knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it. It's actually when not to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
That literally has shocked me over the past like 4 or 5 months of like, don't get into it. Don't try to fight back. Don't try to argue. Don't try to defend. Like, it is pointless and it doesn't matter. Like, let them be right.
Yeah.
Let them be right. And then it doesn't take away from my peace. It doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean that it's not uncomfortable. But ultimately, that is it. And you're right, though. I did used to judge really, really heavily. And it just, yeah, that's the dominance thing. And it's not as much fun.
But it's just beautiful to see the evolution of that, like in a very short period of time from like kind of one extreme to the other. Like, I mean, that's the cool thing that I think is so visible about your journey too, is like there's some very, very high contrast in certain areas. And like that is a beautiful thing to witness and feel the difference in. Like, I mean, that's the other piece is like there is a feeling that is calming to the nervous system, that is um, peaceful to the nervous system. And I mean, I remember working with you, just being transparent on a project early on and being like, oh God, Michelle's calling me. I don't know if I
Cannot pick this up.
and
I
like,
remember that. Was that Live Video Mastery?
uh-huh.
Early 2019. Oh,
But,
yeah.
it's just like such a different energy that you're living from.
Right. Yeah, because we're now co-creating something else, which by the way, I want to be clear, like this conversation has nothing to do with that. This was just like this independent,
Yeah.
inspired nudge that you got. And it just so happens that we were also meant to collaborate on consumer to creator, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, another time. But we
Yeah.
have our
I'm
own
super
podcast coming
excited.
up. Yes.
Super excited about
Super
that.
excited about that. But yeah, I remember that feeling so stressed and so anxious. And everything that could have gone right about a launch that you could ever hope to happen in a launch happened. I had the right ad guys. They got 900 and something people. I think it was 973 people on a webinar. So it must have been thousands that signed up for it, right? Like,
Hmm.
so like, who was I? I wasn't like some big celebrity. Those are Amy Porterfield numbers, right? Like 973 people. And then I didn't know what I was doing. I had literally one person sign up out of 973, and it was my dad. So I refunded him. I was like, Dad, you can't pay for this. And he's like, no, I want to support you. And I refunded him. And I called you crying in the dark when that was over. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to have to get a job. Like, and you were probably like, get off me. I don't know. You were over it, but you were like, no, go to Mexico. Cause I was supposed to go to Cabo the next day. You're like, no. And I'm like, I can't go. I have to just stay home and salvage this. And you're like, no, go swim in the pool, put your face in the sun, go play with your friends, like have an amazing, I was like, I can't, and I did after I cried myself, in a little ball for an hour. And note to anyone listening, like, I'm so proud of this story, right? Because I did go to Mexico. And by the time I came back 4 or 5 days later, we had like 28 people in my very first round of live video mastery. That program went on to touch hundreds and hundreds of lives.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of what it is and what happens inside that container. I've retired it. It's in a vault, which is available for obviously certain people, but you were instrumental and you helped me connect to them and that whole thing and built my workbook. And so, like I said, you've been around from the beginning, but yeah, it
Wow.
must have been hard because I lived in so much fear and control back then. And I didn't know how to be any other way because I didn't know the stress responses that were, so active and triggered. And now I just, I don't know, even if that does show up, I now know how to regulate myself first so that it doesn't impact my relationship
Yeah.
as much. It will
Yeah.
happen, of course, I'm human, but not, nearly as much.
Yeah. I think it's just a beautiful shift. I can see and feel it. And like, I mean, it's complete 180 to like, all of a sudden I wake up and you're like, hey, I've done this and this and this on this consumer to creator project. And and it's like flowy and easy. And your energy about it's so clean and good. And like, it just feels amazing. Like, I
Mm.
mean, and it feels amazing. It feels amazing living from this state that you and I both
Mhm.
really spend the majority of our time living from.
Just works
But
out.
yeah, it does. It's pretty incredible.
Mm.
Well, I could keep doing this all day long because there's a lot of stories that are still left untold. But one of the things that I thought it would be nice to leave people with, we kind of started out talking about the firewalk, and
Mm.
your show is called Fire and Soul. And I think that there's a lot of people walking through their own fires right now, whatever their version of that is, whether it's, just mental and emotional, or that there's like physically things that are going on in their life or stressors in their life that are just making them feel out of the flow of life. And I would love to know, what would be the first things that you would tell someone who's experiencing their firewalk, if you will, right
Mm.
now in their
Mm.
life?
Something that doesn't sound sexy and is not a quick fix, and there's no magic bullet. So most people are gonna be like, peace out. But listeners to Fire and Soul will get this, and that is to learn to be present with it. Literally just be present with it. Increasing our capacity to be wide enough, big enough, strong enough, but not strong in a forceful way, but like I can be with this, so that it could include the joy, the abundance, the fear, the fires, and just to simply be present with it and not needing to suppress it, to numb it, to escape it, to pretend that it doesn't exist. I've been saying this for a long time, but I'm now more so here than I've ever been. And then to also recognize that these are initiatory times. And the fires, I truly believe, are not here to punish us. They are here to purify us. And so, as we are watching so much unfold in the collective, we are not separate from that. So, whatever we are observing and whatever bothers us or riles us up, we might want to just look inward and, like, oh, what is happening inside that's very resonant or familiar with that? And the more that we clean up the internal by simply just being with it, the more that the external doesn't even bother us
Yeah, or even exist in
or
some.
even exist. Like every weekend, there seems to be something that like 90% of my Facebook is so riled up in on a weekend thing. And I'm like, oh, that was happening? I didn't even know. And I'm just like, and this becomes possible. And here's the thing, some people could say, not anyone listening to this show, but could wonder, well, doesn't that having your head in the sand mean that you don't care, that you're not contributing? It's like, no way. We need more carriers of light right now than ever, like increasing our capacity to be with anything on our path, like so that we can stay steady and centered and whole so that we know how to move into swift action when we are meant to. That's the Wu way, the effortless action that's thousands of years old, that ancient wisdom, right? It's like for the most part, you're just chill, you're observing, you're in contemplation. But when it's time to make a swift move, you can. And so yeah, it doesn't serve anyone to stay all riled up in all of that activity that keeps you out of your power. And it keeps you out of unity too, by the way, because we're looking at how we are different. And then there's more polarization, which is the antithesis of everything that I hope to stand for, like through an embodied frequency. Now, I will also say that some people, it's in their life path to be an activist, to, be the fighter. And all of it is necessary. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. I love what Byron Katie says. She's like, to argue with reality is the definition of insanity. It is what it is because it is what it is. But my reality, to your point of this conversation, and yours as well, which is why we're here and closer friends than ever, is peace out on that. I'm going to take care of my insides. I'm going to clean up my own shadow work. I'm going to start to be with me so that I'm not even in resonance with all that chaos and crisis energy anymore. Not because I don't care, but because I care deeply about my fundamental well-being. And when I'm in my wholeness and aliveness, then I'm going to contribute and model and mentor that to another who'd be like, is that possible right now? I'm going to go and have what she's having, which means go in and do the deeper inner work and learn to be present with what is. But I don't know if that's an answer. These, like you're asking me a question, like this is the shit I talk about with my friends, like off the mic, right? Like this is it. This is what you and I would talk about at 6 a.m. on the phone together. So that's probably what I would say in this moment.
And this is it. This is the important stuff. I mean, that is, such a great answer because I feel the same way. Like more and more every day, I lean into be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yes.
If you can be that and keep all of this stuff going on in your world, and you can truly be in that loving presence and see it all, then maybe you're meant to. I know for me, I can't do certain things. I can't do dark TV shows. I can't do bad lyrics. I just can't do it. And I don't because of that. So I think it's a very personal thing for each of us, how we
attune, how we attune. I mean, I keep thinking about, consumer to creator and how one of the very first things inside that experience in whichever offering we roll out, but it's like first getting clear on what are we absorbing, what are we attuning to, and what is our environment, both internal and external. Because it's like, if we're not present to that, then we have no capacity, right? Yeah. We're always in reaction and drowning in distraction. So that's really powerful. And I'm so glad that we're navigating life through resonance again and again and again through all the ebbs and flows, and that we continue to see life through a very similar divine lens.
Yeah. It's been a beautiful journey, and I love you deeply. And I want to honor you for the gift that you've been in my life and for how you've always shown up and led by example and walked through the fire first. And I think I told you this summer, but how much you've represented divine feminine mother energy so many times in my life. And so thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
You're a long lost soul sister, and you make friendship real and easy for me. And I'm so excited for so many more adventures to come.
Me too. The best is yet to come. I think we say that every time.
Every time. Yeah. Gosh, thank you for this. This is a real treat.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to do it and letting me get outside of my comfort zone. And
you're amazing at it. You're a natural. You should have your own podcast.
We'll see. I do feel called to do something around blended families and
Mm,
second marriage stuff. So maybe
yeah,
one day.
maybe one day.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Thank you all for tuning into this and letting me steal the host position for a day. And um, I'm turning it back over to you now.
Exiting out is always the hardest part. So, yeah, I'll just say thank you to everyone and anyone who tuned in. And if this one touched you in any way, please, by all means, we'd love to hear from you. A DM, a review on your pod player, or, a nod on social. Have a beautiful, blessed day, everyone. Thank you so much, Jocelyn.